good morning. I'd like to welcome Andre Booyzen, the Managing Director of Trigg Minerals Limited, with ASX ticker code TMG, Tango Mike Golf, an ASX-listed company at the forefront of antimony and gold exploration in Australia and the United States. Today, we will be discussing Trigg Minerals' key projects in the Wild Cattle Creek deposit in New South Wales and the Antimony Canyon Project in Utah, positioning the company as a critical supplier to global markets and driving value for shareholders. Good morning. How are you today, Andre?
I'm good. How are you, Gia?
I'm doing really, really well. I'm very excited. So let's dive right in. Um, I guess to start off, for those who aren't familiar, could you give us a quick introduction? Tell us a little bit more about Trigg Minerals for those who may not have heard of the company yet.
Okay, well, Trigg's an ASX-listed mining company, and we focus 100% on an antimony and well, obviously critical minerals as well. Yeah, and we're based out of Perth in Australia, and yeah, we have operations, like you said, we have operations in northern New South Wales and in Australia, and we have our probably our flagship project, which is the Antimony Canyon Project in Utah.
hmm And look, let's segue into that. Look, Antimony Canyon has been described as one of the largest and highest grade antimony projects in the US. Can you share a little bit more details on the size, your grade, and the historical works already done on this project?
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of historical works, that the area that we have on our asset is actually a quite an extensive area, and it was previously mined in two big periods really. One was during the First World War, and the next time they really mined that area was in the Second World War. And the mining was really small scale, guys just putting adits straight into the sides of the canyon to supply the war efforts. After the war effort that stopped, and then the USGS and the UN and the Utah Department of Mines decided to go and do some more investigations in the area, and they did a lot of trenching, a lot of exploration, sampling, and they came up with a resource of 12 million tons at 0.8% antimony. Now that's over the whole resource. We think that when we go in there and define the resource a bit better, which we're going to be doing soon, um, it's going to be a lot higher grade and obviously smaller pockets of antimony in the deposits.
Sure.
So
And
we're
does
really excited about the project because it's the only one, well, not the only one, but it's the biggest one and probably the highest grade antimony project in the whole of the USA.
Excellent. I was going to segue into that. Can you give us a bit of an understanding around the scale and the size of this project when it comes to, let's
Yeah.
say, geography and the grade? You're saying it's high, but what is high compared to an average grade?
Oh, there's no with antimony, there's no such thing as an average grade. I mean, every deposit is very different, and
hmm
antimony typically appears in small veins that could range anything from 30 centimeters to 2 or 3 meters or 5 meters. So every deposit is very different, even though the makeup of the well the geology is very similar, but yeah, every deposit is different. So there's no average grade, but in today's prices, and even even if we drop the price down to $20,000 a ton, it's still a very good grade in terms of antimony. There are some deposits worldwide that have really good grades, like in 5%, 10%, 20%, but they're very narrow vein grades. So
Excellent.
obviously, it's we have bulk and lower grade, and in other areas they have less quantity but higher grade.
Okay. And given that this is actually geographically, it's based in the US, and there's a lot
Yes.
of geopolitical tensions around the world in regards to obviously critical minerals, does this mean that you're getting a lot of support actually from like the government as well?
Yes, huge support. We just come back from a trip a couple of weeks ago to the US. We spoke to a lot of potential investors and a lot of investment bankers, and there's huge excitement and interest in the project. Well,
Mhm.
and antimony and critical minerals, obviously, because President Trump has signed all these executive orders to start providing funding, and there's a lot of funding available through various agencies to provide funding for the critical minerals, and yeah, and antimony is one of the top critical minerals. So we're seeing a lot of interest out of the US.
And you're now also talking to institutional investors.
Yes, we are. We've just done a raise, a capital raise, as you know, and 50% of that came from institutional investors in the US.
That is exciting. Well, look, I want to ask the big question, why antimony and what makes this critical mineral such a hot topic right now in the global market and its utility?
So antimony is really, I mean, it's got many uses, and my electronics, etc., etc. But probably the main uses is solar panels. So it's it
Mhm.
and sodium antimonate, which is made from antimony, is used it's combined with the glass on the solar panels, and that
Mhm.
just gives it a clarity, stops that milkiness on the panel, and it gives it a bit of hardness as well. The other big area is lead batteries. So every car in the world, every battery in the world has got antimony in, and it's used to harden the lead in the antimony. Another use is defense. It's a really big use in defense. It's used in missiles, rockets, artillery shells, bullets. Every bullet has got antimony in because it hardens the lead. So it's critical to the defense industry. And probably the use that's probably all around us is a fire retardant. So antimony trioxide, which is a white powder, is really infused into everything, aircraft, furniture, toys, to stop it being flammable.
So the potency of antimony is critical.
It's critical. I mean, life as we know it would be different without antimony.
Thank you for explaining that. And look, I want to address the pricing. You said even if it was at $20,000 per ton, but we can confirm that prices have now surged to around 60,000 US dollars per ton. What do you think is really driving this spike, and how is Trig positioned to really take advantage of it?
So what's driving, well, in my opinion, what's driving the spike, and we actually saw this probably start about 18 months ago.
Hmm.
It's just really a disconnect between supply and demand in the world. I mean, most of your supply of antimony comes out of China. There are some
Hmm.
there are some mines, around the world that produce small amounts, like in Tajikistan, Myanmar, Bolivia, etc., Turkey. But a lot of it is for their own use, and a lot of it, like Myanmar, they've got sanctions against them, so they can't really export legally. So, and China themselves are starting to see the depletion of their reserves. So we started seeing about 18 months ago that the demand for antimony is probably growing about 10% year on year, um, and the supply can't keep up, especially in the West. And then about 8, 9 months ago, China decided to stop exporting to the US antimony. And now recently, the last few months, they've actually stopped exporting to the world completely. So that's really putting a lot of pressure on supply. And there just aren't many. In fact, there's very few operating mines outside of China to supply the Western world. And there's very few smelters. In fact, there's hardly any smelters. The only one in the US is a very small smelter owned by US antimony. So all these factors, plus the war in Ukraine, big demand, the war in Israel, big demand on defense applications for antimony. So that's driving a very big demand for antimony at the moment. And I think that's going to continue probably for at least a few years. So even if the war stopped tomorrow, a lot of these countries that are supplying ammunitions and that have actually depleted a lot of their strategic stockpiles. So those need to be built up again. So I think it's very positive for a very good antimony price going into the future.
And on another note as well, President Trump has actually tried to enforce that all the nations in NATO to actually increase their spending on defense to 5% of their GDP.
Again, so that'll increase demand even further, which is good for the antimony market.
Hmm.
Not so good at the moment because there's a lack of supply, and hence our intention to really get onto the ground and start producing as soon as we can. And our focus in Utah would be mine as quick as we can, process it, smelt it in. We're busy developing a smelting strategy as well. So we're going to go downstream, smelt it, and then supply just the US market.
Understood. And look, the US currently produces no domestic antimony, which surprises me. I mean, how does Tree plan to become part of this solution to this supply chain vulnerability?
So the US consumption of antimony is probably around 30,000 tons of metal per year.
Hmm.
They say they produce nothing, so they've got to get it from somewhere.
Hmm.
So they do. I mean, there's small supplies coming out from some of the other Western countries. No supplies coming out of China. So in the US, they're definitely chewing into their strategic reserves. So from our point of view, we think that the faster we can get online and start mining, the faster we can supply the local market in the US. And then when we've seen a lot of support from the people in the US for that strategy. And
Hmm.
we're busy engaging with some agencies at the moment in the US, and we're hoping to get a lot of funding from US government sources as well to accelerate our project.
And so can you talk to me a little bit more about timeframes? As you said, speed to
Yeah.
market is everything right now. So where are we in the cycle and when can we expect more news flow?
Okay, so in the cycle where we are at the moment, we've got a resource that was defined by the US Geological Service,
Hmm.
um, the US Geological Survey. Um, at the moment, we're busy engaging a well-known consulting group out of Denver, and pretty soon they're going to be on the ground and converting that into an SK 1300 / JORC resource for
Yep.
us. And we're hoping to get that done within the next sort of 30 to 60 days, which
Okay.
is pretty quick. Um, the step after that would be and then at the same time, we're going to be doing some geophysics work. That's already probably going to start next week. We're already engaged people in the US for that. Our next step would be to convert that into a pre-feasibility study, which we will use the same set of consultants for, and we'll have that done before the end of the year. But that being said, we're also busy doing a smelter strategy, and we're about to engage an international company to do a proposal for, well, they've done a proposal for us, but to do a study for us as well on a smelter design. So we're doing all these things in parallel. And at the same time, we're getting boots on the ground and starting to set up infrastructure in the area so that we can actually start doing some pilot mining. So we're hoping to actually get small scale pilot mining started before the end of the year.
On a time scale, that's actually quite rapid. So all of these
It's
moving
very
parts.
aggressive. Yeah, we're a fast moving company. We're very impatient, and so from the pilot studies, and we're studying a few different technologies in terms of processing as well. So in terms of the pilot plant, once we've decided it's been successful and we've decided on technology, they will
Mm.
accelerate our permitting and start operating the mine. And we're hoping to do that within 12 to 18 months, which is super fast for any mining company.
Yeah, that's extremely accelerated. And
And
look,
and we're hoping for a lot of support from the US government agencies in terms of permitting.
well, when the demand is at, did you say 30,000 tons per year?
30,000 tons of metal. Yeah.
And look, now I know you recently raised $12.5 million
Yeah.
with really strong support from institutional and US-based strategic investors. That really puts you actually as one of one of the hottest small cap minings on the ASX at the moment. So what does this really say about the confidence in your team and your strategy?
Oh, I think there's a lot of confidence. I mean, just listening to some of the shareholders and investors speak to us about their feedback and in terms of what we're doing, I think there's a lot of confidence and I think they've got confidence in the team. And we have a really experienced team. I myself, I was the general manager of the Costerfield mine, which is one of the few, in fact, the only operating antimony mine, still the only operating antimony mine in Australia. So I have knowledge of actually
Mm.
operating a mine, getting it going, producing, talking to people about offtake agreements, etc. So I know the worldwide antimony market very well. We've recently appointed two executives from SPMP, which is the largest and only smelter outside of China, in the Western world, sorry, that produced antimony for a while. Now that smelter in itself has shut down now, but the guys that we've brought on board onto Trigg, um, they both have fantastic technical and market knowledge, and we're definitely going to use them for our smelter strategy. And then we engaged Ben from the US.
Mhm.
Used to be a very senior Department of Defense official, and he's going to be advising us on approaching the Department of Defense and other agencies in terms of funding and permitting assistance.
You've
So
really
we have a
assembled.
really good team, and we have a really active board as well. All our board members are hands-on. I rely on them a lot to help me, run the company, and they're doing a very great job at the moment.
Well, in that case, I want to talk a bit more about your experience. We spoke about that briefly off camera,
Yeah.
and you have a lot of international experience. So can you elaborate about that and your commercial acumen, and I guess summarizing what that brings to the table?
Okay. So I mean, my experience really is, I worked for a company called Lonmin Platinum in Black in South Africa for almost 10 years. We're a mining company, third largest platinum producer in the world. Came
Mm.
across to Australia and then, I was appointed general manager of the Costerfield mine with Mandalay Resources. And I was general manager there for just over 7 years and then a vice president in the company for another year. Then I was CEO of Rambler Metal and Mining in Newfoundland and in Canada. I did that for a couple of years, and then after COVID, I came back to Australia, did some consulting work, and now I'm involved with Trigg as the MD. I first came onto Trigg as an advisor, then director, and now obviously as MD. Look, from my point of view, I think I've got good business experience. I've got excellent experience in terms of antimony and all aspects of antimony, from exploration through to developing a mine, through to running a mine, improving a mine, um, you know, working out commercial arrangements with partners, etc., financing. So the whole gambit of mining, but specifically antimony mining and antimony mining because it's a narrow vein, very specialist area. And yeah, I've had a lot of experience with that. So I think I'm probably the ideal person in Australia to be doing this.
Something just came to my mind. I realized is obviously I get access to a lot of the small caps that just talk about antimony because it's such a hotly desirable critical mineral at the moment. But you're not just flirting with antimony, you're actually married to it, right?
Oh, for sure. I'm passionate about it. And I was talking to the smelter guys the other day that, Vian and Dave are the guys we appointed from SPMP, and they're just as passionate about this, about antimony.
And that's, I guess, what you've already touched on it. That really helps you actually assess the talent that you need to assemble with this international all-star team to bring that to market.
Yes. And we won't stop with those guys. We're already talking to a few other people that have got really good experience in antimony, and yeah, just watch the space. We'll announce some appointments in the not too distant future.
Sure. Well, look, we've already talked about some key milestones for your project over the 6 to 12 months in for your Canyon project. But I'm still curious. So you said that the pilot mining will start hopefully early next year because you're quite
Oh no,
aggressive.
later this year.
Later this year, great.
Yeah.
So I guess the real question, a lot of, I guess everyday investors want to ask is when will we actually truly see monetization or cash flow coming through?
So from the pilot mining,
Hmm.
obviously we'll try and get an offtake because we won't have a smelter built by then. So it'll be very small quantities, and we'll try and find a taker in the US that can actually process that for us. So monetization, hopefully there will be a small amount of monetization before the end of the year, but it won't be significant. It'll just be, we're selling the product, the pilot product that we're actually mining. In terms of monetization, if you take 18 months from now, then hopefully by the end of next year. I mean, that's our plan.
Yep.
And if everything goes to plan, then yeah, we'll start seeing some money coming in by the end of next year.
And your track record means that you've actually been able to stay on track and on plan and according to your
So
strategy.
far, in fact, in some of the areas we're actually ahead of plan, and the other strategy we're running as well is we have full intention of actually listing in the US as well.
Okay,
We just know, and because our major asset now is in the US, we
sure.
just think that this, and having access to US funds and that, we just think it's a lot easier, and a lot more beneficial for everyone if we actually listed in the US as well.
You're truly specialist in that space. Now, look,
Yeah.
finally, I guess, what would you have to say for investors who are currently watching this from the sidelines? There's so many options for them. I mean, why should they be paying attention to Trigg Minerals right now?
Um, well, really, I mean, look, first thing I can tell them is jump in. Don't wait too long and jump in. And for those that didn't get involved in the recent raise, I know not everyone was successful in their bids. We had to turn some of them away in terms of the raise, which is always a good thing for us, but not so good for the people that want to invest. But for the investors, trust the team. Look at it might be a short track record, but look at our track record. We've actually achieved a lot in the last 6 months or so, and we're still going to achieve a lot more. And look, the investors as well will start seeing once we get boots on the ground and start doing things like drilling and doing the SK 1300, they'll start seeing that we actually really mean what we plan to do.
So it's the perfect time to get in while it's at the ground level.
Yeah, absolutely great time.
Well, look, I'm very excited to have you back in probably 6 months, Andre, because I think it's always exciting to see what you have achieved in the last 6 months. And if any of our investors or our members have any questions, I'll get them to email it to us, info@sharesandvalue.com.au or info@eastcoastresearch.com.au, and we'll forward them to you and your team to handle. Would that be okay?
That'll be great. Let's do another call before 6 months is up.
Done. Well, let's diarize this off camera. Thank you so much for your time today, Andre.
Thanks, Gia. Thank you very much.